which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, kids. We're excited to see you here. On behalf of the board and central administration, I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight to today's very special meeting. It is our first regularly scheduled meeting since our successful budget vote and election of trustees. You applauding just meant a lot to us up here. This community has a long tradition of supporting its schools, but the last few years, the margins of our votes have been very tight. And I am happy to report, and you might have heard this, but I'm going to say it again, that the budget passed by 898 votes. I'd like to express my appreciation for everyone's efforts. Crafting a budget and then passing a budget takes the work of many, many, many stakeholders, and many of these people go unnoticed. I'd like to thank the amazing central office team, of course, Dr. Chris Zublionis, who spent, I think, every night sleepless. I mean, texting each other at 11 o'clock at night. And I told the story the night of the budget vote that about a week before the vote, I texted him and said, why don't you do one of those things where the superintendent shaves his head if the budget passes? And he writes back, I'll do it if you think it'll work. So he was all in. Thank you. Dr. Carol Smythe, who helped craft a budget which preserved all our programs that we value. Jamie Pappas, who worked so hard with the numbers, making sure that this board felt really comfortable putting up a responsible budget that represented the students and our taxpayers well. Betty Campy, our district clerk, who runs the election. I mean, weeks, months, I mean, she's at it, and there's nobody better. Our poll workers, our IT team, our custodial team, our security team, Shelley and everyone in our communications office. I don't know, where's Shelley today? Social media posts, the emails, I mean, Shelley outdid herself this year. Our amazing staff, teachers, and administrators, our parent organizations who were unbelievable this year. Dr. Z said it was a real coalition, and he was right. You, our parents, our residents who came to the 20 meetings Dr. Z offered, who offered suggestions, advice, and support to us. All of the trustees up here who also had a lot of sleepless nights over this. And most importantly, the 3,414 residents who came out and voted that night. We all thank you on behalf of our students and on behalf of our community. You might also notice that we have a new face up here. That night was also the election of trustees, which was a little less controversial this year because it was uncontested. Vice President Colasiopa was reelected, Trustee Mosca was reelected, and our new trustee, Jim Svensson, was also elected. Jim was inducted at a special meeting last week. He is finishing out the seat that was vacated by Marianne Russo. So thank you, Jim. We're all very excited that you are here, and we welcome you. And Jim got a real taste tonight. Our meeting is just starting for you guys, but he's already been here 2 hours like the rest of us in executive session. So I I hope you brought your pillow. So thank you all again, and I won't take any more time because we can't wait to take photos with the kids. But thank you, we really appreciate it. So let's get moving. The approval of the minutes, we're looking at May 9th and May 23rd. Are there any amendments, comments? Hearing none, I will accept them as is. I'm going to take action for the approval of the treasurer's report from April 2024 with action 5, the approval of budget transfers.
Second.
Thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor? Thank you. Action 6 and 7 I'm going to take together. It's the acceptance of the internal audit and annual risk assessment report. This was dated March 2024, but we reviewed it by our audit committee on May 9th. And action 7 is the approval of the internal audit corrective action plan. I heard a motion. Second. Questions, comments? All in favor? Thank you. I don't think we have an SGO rep tonight. Okay, so no report by the SGO, but that just gives us more time for report from the superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try and be quick as well. Thank you all for your patience and for being here. It's a very special night when our students are here. You are the reason we are all here, so thank you, and we look forward to getting started in just a minute. Just a couple of announcements, and I'll represent Ava as well with some student announcements. The North Shore girls spring track team wrapped themselves in a maroon glory at last Friday's Nassau County Class A championships. They won another county title in a landslide as 13 athletes earned all county honors. And this was the 40th combined county championship for Coach Levy. This was an extra special win. 126 points was more than the combined scores of the second and third place schools. So great job to our girls spring track. But that's not all. I also want to congratulate our girls lacrosse, boys baseball, boys lacrosse, and our tennis teams for making the playoffs this year. They did a great job, and they're developing and doing amazing things, great coaching, and to all of our spring teams. I know our middle school teams are finishing up. We're really excited for everything you've done this year, so congratulations. May has been a marvelous month for music and the fine arts. Our students performed at an amazingly high level in their spring concerts. The growth of students in our music ensembles from fall to spring and from 3rd grade to 12th grade is always tremendously impressive. I always joke about if you closed your eyes at a 6th grade concert, you would feel like you were in a high school concert at another district, or for our high school that it was a professional concert that you were at. But this growth that we see and hear in our musicians is a great model for the growth in other areas of the North Shore journey that might be less visible in terms of knowledge and skills and positive relationships. At our next board meeting, we'll be talking about our end of year progress on our goals in the North Shore journey. And we'll be sending a survey tomorrow to parents and students and teachers to get some feedback on that. That'll be at our June 13th meeting. Our last Parent University of the school year will be next Thursday, June 6th at 7 p.m. right here in the Middle School Commons area. The workshop will focus on impacts of technology on adolescents, very important topic, and it will be facilitated by an educator from Cohen Children's Medical Center Outreach Education Program, a great Parent University to come to. And finally, like Dr. McCary, I want to thank everyone, this full community, everyone in this room, our board, our teachers, our parent organizations, and other community organizations for wrapping their arms around the school district and saying we want to protect and preserve what we have for our students and protect the experience for our students. It was really amazing. And as a superintendent and to speak for Jamie and Carol and our administrators and our faculty, it just gives us so much energy and fuel when you have an outcome like this. I was made fun of a couple of years ago for saying that I would run through fire for this district. A couple of superintendents made fun of me, being a little dramatic. I'm known to be. but this really does give us the fuel to run through that fire. So I just want to thank you for that support, and I'm really excited to really focus on not just next year's budget, but on all of the great work and just to be able to work in this community. It's an honor and very proud. So thank you. I hope we can unite as a community going forward to focus on our common interests in advocating for more support from New York State and Nassau County, especially as we face obstacles in a few years ahead. So thank you all. And now we're going to move on.
Hey. We're all very happy tonight. This is great. So now the moment you've been waiting for, though it might not be your moment yet. There are a lot of students here. Dr. Z will be calling everybody up. Kids, you will be getting some gifts today, I guess we'll call it. Yeah, I know, 2 things. And so here's my rule. When the kids are here, if you would like to take a photo of someone special when they're getting their award, you absolutely are allowed to get up, move, get comfortable, get close, take your time. We know it's a special moment for your family, and we don't want you to miss out on it. So feel free to do that.
I did want to note, we do have a lot of students here for recognition. We're just too good. You're too good. And we are getting to the end of the year with our meeting. So with some groups, I might call up the groups as a whole and then announce students once the group is up here, but everybody's name will be called. We might just change it up a little bit. So I'm going to ask with that, Dr. Smythe, Dr. McCary to come up with me. And thank you to Ms. Campy for all of her help, not only for the budget and everything she did, but for the awards. Thank you. Okay. We're going to ask Dr. Kim Mattis to come up, please. Our Director of Mathematics, K through 12. Oh, and Ms. Goldberg is here. 2 meetings in a row. And Ms. Dugan. Coming to every meeting. Thank you. A group of 4th and 5th grade students from Glen Head School attended the 15th Annual Nassau County Math Teachers Association NCMTA tournament on Wednesday, May 29th at SUNY Old Westbury. The tournament involves both an individual and a team competition and is open to students in grades 4 through 6. Each team is composed of 5 students. Students compete face-to-face with teams from all over Long Island and the New York metropolitan area. There are 2 events at the competition. 10 individual problems and 10 team problems. Whether working independently or collaboratively during the team event, students are challenged to solve complex, multi-step math problems under strict time limits. The opportunity for students to grow mathematically is unsurpassed. The problems are clever, engaging, and challenging, and the atmosphere is exciting and fun. Glen Head students were offered this opportunity based upon several factors, including teacher recommendation, excellence in mathematics performance, and an interest in the field of math problem solving. After competing in a team qualifier, which involved several rounds of tiebreakers, 10 team members and 3 alternates were selected to represent Glen Head School. Alternates trained with the team and were prepared to step in at a moment's notice. So I'm going to ask all of the Glen Head participants for the NCMTA tournament to please come up. And we will announce your names. Team A, Cole Haddon, Madeline Moss, Giuseppe Turciano, Evan Alonzo, Amy Wang. Team B, Colin Sue, Owen Lyons, Nicolas Vassilatos, Leon Noor, and Andrea Papa. And alternates, Ignacio Caminero, Devin Chopra, and Chloe Lim. And once you receive your certificates, we're going to ask students to wait up here. We're going to take a few photos. Okay, great job, Glen Headites. Thank you, Ms. Goldberg. Next, we are going to recognize our Long Island Math Fair participants. The Long Island Math Fair is an incredible event designed to ignite students' passion for mathematics beyond what they learn in their regular classes. It is an avenue for students to delve into unique mathematical topics that go beyond the classroom curriculum. It's a chance for our top math students to unleash their creativity and explore original mathematical ideas. This year, we have 7 students from North Shore Middle School and 14 students from North Shore High School participate in the math fair. Of the 7 middle school students, 6 took home medals. At the middle school, participation in the math fair is through a club advised by Ms. Frailer. This year's projects focused on fractals, 4-color theorem in P, mathematical illusions, magic square, E, and non-Euclidean geometry. Of the 14 high school students who participated, 12 took home medals. Mr. Wankel, who's here, you can come up, Mr. Wankel. Is he here? Yeah, I put it. I got you. Thank you. Mr. Wankel, our high school math research teacher, stated that this year the student research was full of originality. Students studied topics including the mathematics behind the physics of figure skating, modeling the math that underpins the college admissions calculator, and establishing relationships of the radii of 3 mutually externally tangent circles and the sides of the triangle whose vertices are the points of tangency. Students also studied some of math's most precious gems, including RSA codes, a geometric solution to the quadratic equation, and celestial calculations. Each student wrote a research paper and created a presentation on their selected topic. Their dedication and commitment to math research is commendable. Congratulations to all of our Long Island Math Fair participants. Incredibly impressive and authentic. We're going to call up our middle school participants first. Middle school participants, if you would come forward, and I'm going to read their names and their awards. Madden Altman, Gold Award. Stella Cashman, Silver Award. Rohan Chopra, Gold. Avery DiMiola, Gold. John Osereo, Honorable Mention. Ann Kelly, Gold. Maisie Lippert, Silver. All right, and we're going to take a quick photo, guys. Okay, and we're going to call up Mr. Contreras for the high school participants. And high school participants, if you would come forward. Ruby Brock Tarkish-Van, silver. Finn Collins, bronze. Ty Fictel, bronze. Ava Gibstein, honorable mention. Ashley Holden, gold. Brandon Shee, gold. Seamus Hughes, honorable mention. Jasmine Coe, bronze. Grace Lee, gold. Jessica Leonard, silver. Harrison Levin, silver. Bryn Paulinski, bronze. Luke Barakis, bronze. And Cecilia Riley, silver. Okay. Would Miss Anna Aguiar-Mady and the FLES teachers please come forward? Thank you all for being here. The World Language Department is here to recognize and celebrate our students' outstanding achievements in the 2024 New York State Association of Foreign Language Teachers, or NYSAFELT, annual student virtual video contest and NYU Rock That Movie Mandarin Movie competition. In each of the 5 schools in the district, participating world language students worked with their teachers to create a video showcasing their language schools across several different categories. These video categories include authentic speaking tasks, poetry recitation, song, tongue twister recitation, and language advocacy. Students worked independently or collaborated with peers to produce an innovative performance in their world language of study, creating a video entry that competed with many schools across New York State. NYSAFELT is the main foreign language advocacy organization in the state, so the competition was great, but the Viking ship earned a top place in almost every category and division. Oh. And we'll have the rest of our world language department is here as well, if you could come up as well. Thank you all for being here. I sense some solidarity. We have an entire department here. But your work is truly exceptional. Thank you for everything you do every day. And I know you enjoy doing it, and that's why our students love doing it. So thank you. We're going to call up by group again, if that's okay. We're going to first call up our Glen Head School virtual video contest winners. So students from Glen Head School who won this award, if you could please come forward. And I will call your names in just a second. Look at these guys. Grace Gwynn, first place, Best Division, Language Advocacy. Leo Herod, first place, Tongue Twister Recitation. Jackson Indriri, first place, Best Division, Language Advocacy. Mason Indriri, first place, Best Division, Language Advocacy. Christina McCabe, first place, Best Division, Language Advocacy. Army Ross, first place, Best Division, Language Advocacy. Isabella Silva, third place, Song. Talia Spry, first place, Best Division, Language Advocacy. Nayla Trail, third place, Song. Max Traeger, first place, Best Division, Language Advocacy. Vincenzo Terriciano, first place, Best Division, Language Advocacy. And Adelina Yang, third place, Song. Okay, our Glenwood Landing group, please come forward. Emma Campariali, first place, Poetry Recitation. Stella Casino, second place, Tongue Twister Recitation. Jude Caslin, second place, Tongue Twister Recitation. Jay Chan, second place, Tongue Twister Recitation. Lucia Garcia, first place, Poetry Recitation. Justin Hannon, first place, Poetry Recitation. Hunter Hojanowski, second place, Tongue Twister Recitation. Ava Koob, first place, Poetry Recitation. Madeline Mooney, first place, Poetry Recitation. Maria Tagaris, first place, Poetry Recitation. Athena Theodoropoulos, second place, Song. Claire Chitillo, first place, Poetry Recitation. Kendall Yao, second place, Tongue Twister Recitation. And Henry Zayas Robbins, first place, Poetry Recitation. Way to go, Glenwood Landing FLES Award winners. Well done. And SCS, the Seacliff School, please come forward. Charlotte Grayson, third place, authentic speaking. Ella Mae Grau, third place, authentic speaking. Liliette Fuentes King, third place, language advocacy. Amelia Kletter, first place, authentic speaking. And Sydney Singh, first place, authentic speaking. And Lausha, first place, outdoor learning. Just kidding. Okay, would our middle school group come up, please? Yusuf Bajwa, first place, Best Division Song. Joseph Dorman, first place, Best Division Poetry Recitation. Noel Dorman, first place, Best Division Poetry Recitation. Angel Lee, first place, Tongue Twister Recitation. And Angelo Scarola, third place, Poetry Recitation. Okay, the Vikings at the top, our high school students, please come up. Elizabeth Ori, first place, Poetry Recitation. Julia Gannon, first place, Poetry Recitation. Caitlin Ho, first place, Authentic Conversation. Olivia McCarthy, first place, Language Advocacy. Cecilia Riley, second place, Song. Jocelyn Wang, first place, Best Division Song. Okay, we actually have now the NYU Rock That Movie competition. Sorry for the confusion. Our North Shore High School students participated in the NYU Rock That Movie Mandarin movie competition. The competition was developed in 2014 by NYU alumni and has been providing an opportunity for Mandarin learners to show their ability in both Mandarin and movie making skills every year under a different theme. This year's theme was A Whole New World. Both North Shore High School teams earned first place in the category of filmmaking and technical skills. They were competing against 42 submissions from 20 schools nationwide, including local school districts such as Jericho Syosset and Herricks. Not that we compare. Our school students created short movies in Mandarin. They worked collaboratively to create plots, write drafts, make timelines to shoot each scene, and edit the movies. They demonstrated the qualities of innovators, collaborators, and problem solvers. Here are the students who competed and were victorious. Adam Badechi, 10th grade team. Lily Chen, 10th grade team. Juliana Semino, 10th grade team. Sophia Estadiatis, 10th grade team. Finn Gallagher, 10th grade team. Jacob Ludmar, 10th grade team. Efrancini Molanas, 10th grade team. And Catherine Persabali, 10th grade team. Hannah Sadowski, 10th grade team. Yoko Zhang, 10th grade team. Our 11th grade team, Connor Daravor, Caitlin Ho, Seamus Hughes, Callista Lynn, Nora Solomon, and Angelica Zhu. And both teams tied for first place. Great job. Congratulations, students, and to our World Language Department, and thank you, World Language Department, and Ms. Aguiar for being here. I'd like to call up Dr. Molly Mordecai and Mr. Eric Contreras to recognize our science research students. We have had an amazing year in our science research program. The science research program at North Shore High School provides scientifically motivated students with the unique and exciting opportunity to conduct formal laboratory research within their 4 years of high school. From the beginning of introductory classes up the more advanced levels of 11th and 12th grade, all science research students learn how to convert the scientific method from words on paper to actions in laboratories. In the end, all of our research students emerge as knowledgeable, mature research scientists who are well equipped to tackle their next hypothesis and help solve the scientific problems of the world they are about to inherit. This was an extremely successful year for North Shore Science Research as we won distinction in competitions from right here on Long Island all the way to Los Angeles, California, literally coast to coast. We are so proud to acknowledge the following students for the awards and accolades they received this year. Blair Tao elucidated the influence of glioblastoma extracellular vesicles on the immune cell landscape, winning the Science Talent Search Top 300 Scholar. Michelle Yu rescue of Alzheimer's disease with chia oil in fruit flies, Science Talent Search Top 300 Scholar. Caitlin Ho rescue of Alzheimer's disease with cocoa in fruit flies. Awards: International Science and Engineering Fair finalist, third place in Animal Sciences at ICEF in Los Angeles, California, and Long Island Science Congress Best in Category advanced to New York State Science Congress, which is next week, and the Junior and the JSHS Round 2 invitation to present. And we have a team project: Eva Dominguez, Sadie Elbaum, and Olivia McCarthy. Please come up. This team explored metal-infused fabrics as a preventative measure for bacterial contamination. These projects are just so impressive. Long Island Science Congress Junior Division, Best in Category, advanced to New York State Science Congress on June 9th in Syracuse. Mahia Vera. Mahia explored factors correlating with food allergy prevalence worldwide. The Kathy Belton Science Fair at Malloy University, first place in category. Arian Vera. Explored the gut microbiome and bioremediation capabilities of oysters in the polluted waters of Newtown Creek. New York State Science and Engineering Fair, third place in category. Eli Wesley Jones. Explored people's understanding of the conditional probabilities involved in medical screening tests. Long Island Science and Engineering Fair, third place in category. Graham Lippard. Modeled ultra-cold atomic collisions with a chirped laser. JSHS Round 2 invitation to present. And Sophia Martini. Elucidated potential virulence factors in H. somni A. cattle bacteria, JSHS Round 2 invitation to present. Well done. And I want to thank Dr. Mordecai for all of her hard work. Thank you so much for all you do. Okay, picture time. Is Binny June here? Come on up, please. We want to congratulate Binny for earning a superior designation for the 2024 National Council of Teachers of English NCTE Achievement Awards in Writing. Personal narrative and poetry are unique genres, ones that not only hail writers' individual voices and perspectives, but also celebrate readers' universal experiences and desires. Binny's piece showcases her unique skill at utilizing literary strategies to convey meaning, her belief in the value of self-expression through language, and her generosity for inviting others to share her innermost insights. Binny's submission competed against 633 students in 44 states, Guam, Washington, D.C., Canada, Greece, Jordan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Thailand. 2 to 3 independent judges evaluated each submission holistically on content, purpose, audience, tone, word choice, organization, development, and style. We are so proud of Binny's work and of her talent for crafting words that resonate so clearly with those who hear them. Congratulations. NYSSMA Majors Music Festival is an opportunity for ensembles to perform high-level repertoire to expert adjudicators and receive feedback on tone, intonation, balance, technique, accuracy, rhythm, and artistic expression. The judges give final ratings of bronze, silver, gold, and gold with distinction. This year, North Shore was represented by 7 high school ensembles, and they received the following ratings. Concert Chorale Level 6, gold with distinction. Magical Singers, 6, gold with distinction. Symphonic Band Level 5, gold with distinction. Jazz Band Level 6, gold with distinction. Freshman String Orchestra Level 4, gold. Grades 10 through 12 String Orchestra Level 5, gold with distinction. Chamber Orchestra Level 6, gold with distinction. One adjudicator added to his comments, gold with distinction and beyond. Receiving a gold. Receiving a gold is a noteworthy accomplishment, and receiving gold with distinction is an extraordinary achievement because it is the highest rating NYSSMA bestows and only achieved by less than 10% of school ensembles across New York State. Congratulations to our high school student musicians and their teachers, Mr. Domingo, Mr. Bramze, and Mr. Catalano. Would you please come up? We know you do it for the pen. That's the only reason. I just want to thank you so much. Mr. Domingo couldn't be here this evening, but thank you so much for everything you do for our students, for our music program. We call you the Dream Team, and we really appreciate the excellence, the high level of the work that you do every day. Unfortunately, Ms. Rodriguez could not be here either, but we know we speak for her, certainly. We talk about it all the time behind your backs, so congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We'll be renaming the guidance department the patience department tomorrow night, but thank you.
I guess, hold on, all right. That was exciting. Just give me a second here. Okay, oh, now it's time for our regular business. It is the transition to college and career. So come on down. We don't have pens for you or certificates. I guess trustees should take their seats, correct?
That's right, and I have
Okay.
handouts for the trustees of the
great.
presentation. I do want to thank Mr. Doherty for all of his hard work on this presentation, and also all of our counselors, but I also want to especially thank Mr. Shea and Ms. Fawcett for being here this evening to help us with this. Thank you.
Evening, everybody. This here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about the college and career process and the transition to life beyond North Shore. When I saw this as a board topic, and Chris mentioned to me, it was like the spring last year, I was excited because we do this really well, and I'm really excited to highlight the work of our department. And thank you to Ms. Fawcett and Mr. Shea for being here. So I'll be remiss to give a presentation on this topic without talking about my wonderful team. We have 5 experienced, compassionate, student-centered, caring counselors in the high school, all with college experience in different ways. Ms. Fawcett has worked at LIU Southampton. Mr. Shea has worked at Hofstra. Mr. Yarmouthie has worked at Farmingdale. Ms. Nelson has worked at Manhattan College, and Ms. Gentile worked at Roslyn for years as a college advisor. One thing that I hope you take from this presentation is the individualized approach that each counselor takes to every student and every family. When students enter North Shore High School, they're not pigeonholed with this is where they're going to go, this is what they're going to do. The counselors meet with them, speak to them about their goals, meet their families, really get to know them really well, and work with them throughout the 4 years. They have an open door policy. So I'm glad that they're here tonight to hear me say that. And they're wonderful. They make my job easy. So I wanted to start there because they're the ones really doing the work and working with students on a daily basis. So the post-high school options for students, the majority of our students are going to go on to 4 years or 2 years of college. As you can see, the data throughout this presentation, I went back to 2018, which is 2 years prior to COVID, through 2023, so 2 years post-COVID. So a lot of the data is going to reflect those 5-year periods. As you can see, 94, 95, 97% over the past 3 years have gone on to either 2 or 4 year college. The numbers vary from 85% for 4 year in 2022 to 87% last year, but they still hover around that 94, 95% of college. So as I go through this presentation, it is going to be very college focused. That does not mean that we don't work with students on careers or different pathways. We do. We individualize the process for every student. We have students that go on to vocational paths after high school. We have students that go on to the military. We have students that go on to trade unions. We have students that take gap years. And with the smaller caseloads that our counselors have, we're able to work with every student in that fashion and support whatever their path may be after high school. So some of the data that we pulled, again, from 2018 to 2023, these are our top 20 most applied to colleges over that time period. And then just to break down the data, there's 3 public out-of-state schools, 7 SUNY colleges, 9 private colleges, 1 2-year SUNY, which is Nassau Community. 13 of the schools are in New York. 20 most attended colleges, and just to address the first college, Nassau Community, that's consistent with really when I was at Herrick's, it was the similar numbers, same. If you think about the percents, if we're sending 8% of students, that's about 15 students a year, they all go to Nassau Community. So it's rare that we're sending 15 students to any college, but when we do it, it is Nassau Community. It's one of the top community colleges in the country. We should be proud of that. Financial positives with students going there, guaranteed transfer. We've aligned some of our dual enrollment classes through Nassau Community. So I don't view that as a negative. I view it as a positive, and it is consistent with other schools. The number is also higher. In 2020, 30 of our students went to Nassau during COVID, which is double what we normally, on average, we're 10 to 15 going to Nassau Community College. But to expand out and look at the rest of the list, some of it speaks to our families may want to stay in New York. 16 of the colleges are in New York State. University of Delaware is the one in Delaware, 2 in Connecticut, 1 in Massachusetts. There's 9 SUNY colleges, 10 private colleges, and 1 public out of state. So something to consider with this slide is our families are making smart consumer choices in terms of college is an investment, right? And a lot of the schools that our families end up going to are SUNYs, or if you look at some of the local private schools, they're very generous with our students with scholarship money. So that's kind of where our students are ending up, and this slide supports that. Okay, so the next couple slides, we're going to talk about the class of 2024. What you're looking at are baby pictures of the class of 2024. Every year, it started about 4 years ago, the seniors started to create a senior commit Instagram page. It's completely student run, student managed. We haven't had any issues with it. They include everyone. They create the slides. The students send the slides to each other. They add to it, and then they're nice enough to share it with us. We print the slides and we hang them outside the windows of the counseling office. The class of 2024 is really special. They've navigated you'll hear about it tonight, but they've navigated one of the more difficult college admissions seasons, and they crushed it. Like they did really well. Throughout the process, there's always folks that are happy and unhappy, but I feel like overall, hearing from the counselors, meeting with the students, they all ended up in somewhere where they're excited about. So this is a breakdown. You'll hear about Naviance later. We have all of our data for college in terms of where students apply in the Naviance database. I'll show you what that is and talk more about it. We, in our office, processed over 2,000 applications. The average number of applications per student is 10.8, so really 11. So on average, students are applying to about 10, 11 colleges. The average acceptance rate per student was 64%. So if a student applied to 10 schools, 64%, they were getting into 6 or 7 of them. The median acceptance rate per student was 69%. The range was 6% to 100%. The next data point I'm really proud of, I know there's a lot of anxiety around the college process and there's fear that students aren't going to get in. 31 of our seniors out of a class of roughly 200 got into every school they applied to. So some of that are students who applied early decision and got in and didn't apply to another school. So that's one of one that they got into. But some of it speaks to our families are realistic about the process. And I'm going to give credit to the counselors who are appropriately advising students throughout the process. And then the next data point, 110 of our students, which is 60% of the class, were accepted to 60% or higher of the colleges that they applied to. So out of the schools that they applied to, they got into 60% of them. And the next data point, 140, got into 40% or higher of the schools that they applied to. So where are they going? This is not an exhaustive list. There were FAFSA delays. I'm not going to get into all of that. That pushed back the commit day. A lot of the colleges allowed students more time. Typically, students have to commit by May 1st. A lot of commit days for the college's end was May 15th. Some were June 1st. Our kids are amazing. We actually scheduled May 17th to be our commit day. We have the kids wear their shirts and do the whole thing. And the seniors came down and said, there's some students that haven't committed yet, and they were considerate of their classmates, and they pushed it back to tomorrow. So there may be some schools not on here, so it's not an exhaustive list. The students that have the asterisks next to them have multiple students attending. And keep in mind, these are only the schools that students are attending, not every school that they were accepted to. So there's more schools that our students got into. But it's really an impressive list in terms of it has high-profile art schools, it has high-profile tech schools, it has big schools, small schools, liberal arts schools, community colleges. It really runs the gamut, and our kids did really well this year. Again, just to highlight the class of 2024, we have 15 students going on to play NCAA athletics. We have 34 students that have told us that they're going to major in either an art or a music, or minor in an art or a music. We had students that were accepted to combined medical programs, art institutes, music conservatories. You saw the list on the previous page. So I'm going to full credit Mr. Shea. This was his idea. This slide is showing data from 2018 to 2022. So these are the most competitive colleges in the country broken down by acceptance rate. So 3% at Harvard, 3% Caltech, 4% at Columbia. So these are the most competitive schools to get into. We took the number of students from North Shore that applied from 2018 to 2022, and then we took the number of students that were accepted, and then we came up with our North Shore acceptance rate. So all the schools that are in green, we either meet or top the acceptance rate at that school. A school like University of Chicago has a 5% acceptance rate. Our North Shore rate is 25%. Northeastern has a 7% acceptance rate. We're at a 32%. Cornell's 7%. We're at 21%. So those schools, we're doing well. An important note is this doesn't include the 2023 data or the 2024 data. If we add 2024, we have a student going to Princeton, we have a student going to Duke. Like, those numbers would go up, especially because the number of applications are so small. Thank you, Mr. Shea, for the idea. Okay, I know Dr. Z said that we don't compare ourselves earlier, so I apologize, Dr. Z, for these slides, but in preparing for the presentation, I solicited a handful of neighboring schools. Some of the schools shared their data with me willingly. Some said no. So out of respect to those schools, we're not going to name the schools, but this is a neighboring, similar sized school, which you can see by the number of applications. And we thought it would be a good idea just to kind of see how we're doing in the process, comparatively speaking, to our neighbors. And as you can see, so what you're looking at, 2018 to 2023. So this adds a year from our last slide. The number of students that applied, the number of students that were accepted, and then the percent accept. On the left-hand side, that's North Shore. On the right-hand side, that's our neighboring school. The list of colleges that we chose was pulled from that highly competitive list that you saw earlier, but they're all schools where we have a lot of applications. So I sorted it by percent accept, and then I sorted it by number of applications. So these are highly competitive colleges that our students do apply to. So I pulled out the schools that have like 5 or 6 applications and really focused on these numbers. In green, it shows that, which side is higher. So Boston University, we're at 32%. Our competitor school is at 27%. As you can see, there's a bit more green on the North Shore side than the competitor side. I'm showing this, but there's a lot of factors that go in to the process, and I've worked at one of our competitor high schools. The process is different at every school. How students choose to apply, how parents choose to apply is different at every school. Some schools, there's a lot of strategy going on and early decision and things like that. And I'm happy to say here, having been here for 5 years, been through the process, worked with the counselors, there's a bit more consideration in terms of fit, and you'll hear that from the alumni when we talk. It's not a game to everyone, and that's not a knock on any other school, but there is some consideration that goes in here, a bit different than some of the other schools. So this is another competitor school, twice our size. So we did a small school and a large school. As you can see by the number of applications to BU, 416 compared to 151. So there were a lot more applications, but again, we used the percent accept number. And this one is a bit more balanced in terms of, the numbers. Some of the schools, like Georgetown, we've had one student get in over 36 applications. They've had a bit more. So it does kind of vary by school. And a lot of that can depend on where our students are applying to and if our top students are applying there or not. Hey, so Lori Wax and Kate Anderson are two college admissions representatives. Lori works at Penn State. Kate Anderson works at SUNY Oswego. And we've had them come and do our junior college night the past 2 years. They're amazing. They do a really nice job. And I'm going to show you a snippet of a video from the junior college night to have Lori explain how colleges look at GPAs. And I'm hoping this works.
Number one factor that every school is looking at is
As you can see, that's 21 minutes into that presentation, and it goes on for an hour. And her partner, Kate, is amazing as well. So that video is available to all of our families on our website. And it's linked at the end of this presentation if we post it somewhere. And we have, you'll see a picture of Lori later and Kate. They both come in and meet with our students as college reps, and we'll talk about that process in a little bit. Okay, so components of the college application process. So this whole slide I could talk about for a half hour, so I'm going to do kind of a quick overview. Lori just touched on the GPA and how colleges view that. The other spokes to the admissions process, SAT, ACT testing, as you are probably aware, the majority of schools have moved to test optional policies, so that may or may not factor into our students. We still recommend that they take it. We'll talk about that a bit later. The upper tier, highly competitive colleges, MIT, Georgetown, Harvard, Cornell, have moved back, Dartmouth, to requiring test scores. If you're not submitting your test scores, the other pieces of this pie chart expand. So they're going to look a little more at your GPA. They're going to dive a little deeper into your extracurriculars. They're going to maybe take more into consideration into your letters of recommendation or the essay. So the other spokes are the college essay. We do an essay workshop with the English department where Lori and a different college admissions counselor came in and worked with our students and gave advice and read essays. The teacher letter recommendation process, we work with the students on that. Typically schools require 2 teachers and a counselor letter. That varies by school. Some schools don't read letters, some schools only need 1. Community service, jobs, extracurricular, sports, pretty much what has the student been involved with in high school is a big factor, and a big question that college admissions counselors asked is how have they impacted your community? How have they impacted their school? Have they taken on leadership roles? So that's a piece of that. And then special talents, so athletics, music, art, theater, those are other areas that could factor into the process. Again, I could go like deeper on each, but we don't have a lot of time tonight, so I'm going to keep it moving. So what you're looking at here are the student-focused supports that we offer in the counseling department, the parent-focused supports, and then counselor professional development. So the course selection process is something we take very seriously here at North Shore. It really starts in 8th grade for the high school. One of our high school counselors joins the 8th grade counselor. I'm usually in attendance, and we present to the students on how the transcript works, graduation requirements, differences between honors and regents. We have the parent night where the directors do the same thing. And then in the high school, and again, I've worked in other high schools and interned, and I have friends that work in other high schools. Not every school does this. We have individual meetings with the student and the parent, and we invite the parent in. There's some high schools where students come down in their English class, they meet with the counselor for 5 minutes, they go on their way. The parents are then sent the requests. We don't do it that way. We take it very seriously, and there's a lot of thought that goes into those conversations, and we offer a lot, so that goes into it as well. And that happens every year for our students. Our junior conferences, again, the average junior conference that I've seen from the counselors is about an hour. In other schools, again, like it doesn't always happen that way. Some schools, the junior conference can be somewhat formulaic, where it's here's the forms you need to fill out, here's your timeline, this is what Naviance looks like, and then they send them on the way. Our counselors, there's a lot of pre-thought that goes into that meeting. We have the students and families fill out an interest survey, so the counselors go into the meeting with a full understanding of what the family is looking for. The counselors do a wonderful job of collaborating with each other, collaborating with me, and coming up with a list of schools for those families. And then it's really a conversation. It's not a formulaic kind of DMV type, here's what you need to do, in and out. They do a wonderful job with that. I've observed those meetings. And it's something that I think separates, it's kind of when Chris says what makes us us, I think in the counseling department and this process, that's one thing that makes us us, and it's not just that meeting, there's follow-up meetings and conversations that happen. The Naviance program, so I'm going to switch to, okay. So we use Naviance for a number of different areas. College research, first and foremost. So anytime a student applies to college, we input their data into Naviance. Their GPA is in there. Their SAT scores are in there if they took them, or ACT. You can toggle between SAT or ACT. And then we put whether the student was accepted to that school or not. So what you're looking at here is a scattergram of a particular school. So on the left-hand side, you see the GPA. On the bottom, you see the SAT score. And then those little X's, squares, dots are the students. So it's anonymous. You're not going to see the names. The counselors can see the names, but families can't. But it's a good data point that the counselors will use with students to try to keep them realistic in the process. And there's more that goes into this process than just the GPA. and the test scores. But as you saw in that pie chart, the GPA really is the first and foremost piece. And historically, the test scores were kind of that second piece, and that's changed a little. But it's a great tool that we utilize. We introduce it to the students in middle school, actually. We have a middle school lesson where they do a career interest inventory. And then at the end of that lesson, it was in the backup if you had a chance to look at it. We do let them kind of explore and look at colleges and play around a little bit, and they seem to enjoy that. This is also where when colleges come to visit, we list all the visits on there, and students can sign up to come to those visits. But it's a nice tool. Every family, every student has an account and access to it. We have a counselor senior assembly in the fall. It's really right after we get back, and it's usually like the second week of school, where we go through the process with the counselor and their students in a larger group. At that meeting, typically the counselors will either bring their appointment book and schedule an appointment with the students, or they'll tell the students, hey, we should really make an appointment over the course of the next 2 weeks to sit down, and then they have an individual meeting with the student. Sometimes the parent will join for that if that's helpful. Individual common application support. In a high school where I came from, a high school where I had 70 seniors, and it made it somewhat difficult to do some of the things that our counselors are able to do here. Our counselors average about between 40 and 50 seniors. They meet a lot with the students and help them with their applications in an individual capacity, which again doesn't happen everywhere, and they do a nice job with that. The college rep visits I spoke a little bit about earlier. Every year we have, the number varies, but I would say around 40 colleges that come individually, and they meet with our students and they have a conversation with them. At times it's 20 students in a classroom and it's more of a presentation. Other times, so these are some of the pictures. So that's Lori, who you just saw speaking at a presentation, meeting with our students on the right. The far left is a representative from Boston University, and in the middle is our mini college fairs. These visits are a great opportunity for, number one, our students to learn more about the school. Number two, our students to have an opportunity to ask questions at that school. And sometimes there's 2 students in the college rep and it turns into like a really nice conversation. The reps actually prefer it that way. Like they don't really want to present, like they'd rather have hey, what do you want to major in? What questions do you have about the school? So it's a really nice opportunity. Our teachers are wonderful about allowing students to miss class to come down should they need to. And then what you see in the middle is our mini college fair. We went back to this year. We used to do mini college fairs, then we did big college fairs, then it was COVID. And the mini college fairs are a nice opportunity for about 15 schools to come at the same time. They set up in the hallway. We try to do it during the lunch period so that there's passing time and the students can come up and ask the college reps questions in a more unofficial capacity to the individual visits. So those are nice opportunities for our students. Letter recommendation process I talked about, the essay workshop I mentioned. We also have an alumni panel. So every year, and thank you to the PTO for coordinating this, every year the PTO president and I work together to get alumni to come back to talk to our seniors. So we do it in an assembly fashion. And I'm so impressed by our alums every year. We have such intelligence and they give wonderful kind of sage advice to our students. It's usually in January, so it's more focused on the transition to college or selecting a school, not so much the process itself. And then in the evening, we do a parent event that Dr. Z joined me for, and Mr. Contreras. I think we had like 4 parents this year, so hopefully we get more next year. But it was a nice conversation about how the parents can support their senior through the process as well. Ms. Fawcett has created a scholarship website, which is linked at the end of this presentation for our families, and then the extracurricular advisement that we talked about. For the parents, we have a junior college night, which you saw the video of earlier. We have the video because it was during a snow day this year. Usually we do it in person, but it was nice to have the video. I do a senior college night in September. It's usually like the second or third week of school, where I go over the whole process with the parents. Some of the slides you see tonight are in that presentation as well. We have a financial aid night where we bring in a representative. It's been Jim Rogers from Molloy, now Molloy University, the past 2 years. He goes over the whole financial aid process. We did that in November this year. because it was pushed back a little with the deadlines and everything, which is super helpful for our parents. Junior conferences I talked about, senior conferences I talked about, and the alumni panel. Counselor professional development. Again, we have dedicated counselors as evidenced by 2 of them sitting here at 9 o'clock tonight. They're consistently going to conferences, breakfasts, they're sharing articles amongst one another, constantly trying. It's an ever-changing landscape of college admissions, and they stay at the forefront of it. One area that we budget each year is for our counselors to visit colleges, and that's another unique piece that North Shore does, which is fantastic. So every year, our counselors visit various schools. So last year, Mr. Shea and I went to Tennessee, Emory, Georgia Tech, University of Georgia, Nashville. When Miss Fawcett was on a family trip to Ireland, she ventured to Trinity College to see Dublin, which just shows the commitment. But every year, and I put the whole list in the backup of all the schools that our counselors have seen. And really where the value is there's nothing better than being able to speak to, oh, when I was on campus, I saw this, or when I met with the admissions rep, they said that, you should do this. It also puts North Shore on the map for those schools. And we're on the map already, but it puts a face where we meet with people. And, Mr. Shea met with a rep from Tennessee last year, and I called her this year about a student. It's nice to have that face-to-face piece. Okay, so components of so that was pretty much what we do in school with students. What students should be doing out of school. SAT, ACT testing we talked about. Ways that we've supported students through this is this year the SAT went digital in March, and there was a lot of anxiety amongst directors of guidance and schools and Elliott K about how we're going to do this, how's it going to work with the Wi-Fi and students coming in. So we designated ourselves as an SAT school day, so that means we only tested our students. And it was an advantage for our students. It's more work for Mr. Shea and me, but it was an advantage to our students. What College Board does is they make us do all the work. We collect the money and everything, and then we just send it to them, but they don't do anything. We do the registration. But one thing I have to credit Mr. Shea with is he met with every student that gets a reader and tested, does the reading work? We met with every student in a Super Commons and tested their Chromebooks. Dom, I think, was at some of those with Elliot. And those are things that my nephew took the SAT in a different school. He just showed up with a laptop that day, crossed his fingers that it worked. We made sure it worked for everyone. And again, that's that individualized approach of what we do here. Method Test Prep is a testing company that we've used previously. We still have access to their free SAT prep on our website, and some students do use that. What we found was when we use Method Test Prep for SAT prep through Community Ed, we were getting about 5 to 8 registrations per year, which it wasn't really maximizing the value for us. So a competitor test company named Curve Breakers came in last year and did a sales pitch, and we said, let's see if you can get more folks to sign up. And we had 40-something students sign up this year. They actually had to split it into 2 classes. So that helped. The advantage to our community is it's a discounted rate. It's here at North Shore. So that was a nice change this year. The extracurricular involvement I spoke about earlier, that's going to be a piece of the process. Community service opportunities. We have Ms. Halloran as our community service liaison, who is connecting students constantly to internship opportunities, to community service opportunities. And again, that's another unique piece to North Shore. The Common App I mentioned earlier, the counselors do support the students with that, but a lot of that does need to be filled out outside of school. Essay writing, we talked about the workshop. Our counselors do meet with students and assist them with the essay. Some of this work does typically happen over the summer, so it's really September, October, helping them with that. Some of the upper tier schools, more competitive colleges, a lot of the private schools have supplemental essays where it's an additional essay that you write in addition to your main 650-word essay. Those are typically focused on why are you a good fit at this school, or why are you choosing the major that you applied to. And then should an interview be part of the process, that could be something that the students need to do. Okay, so we interviewed a couple of our alums to hear kind of how we're doing and if they're enjoying their school. So I'm going to play some of these videos. They're about a minute each. So this is Ariadna from the class of 2021. Martini was also class of 2023. Share with me, she led the lacrosse team in assists this year too. So she found that out tonight. Eight was class of 2022. Awesome was also class of 2022.
Hi, my name is Emma Nelson, and I graduated from North Shore High School in the class of 2022, and I just completed my second year of college at the Colorado School of Mines in Boulder, Colorado. I can confidently say that I know as a perfect school for me. I'm currently pursuing a degree in geological engineering, and what better place to study geology than in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains? I came with a 20-minute walk to some of the coolest rock formations in the United States. I mean, rock formations that geologists from all over the world will travel to see at some point in their career.
Example of kind of taking a different path, but very specific to what she wants to do. She actually came in last week and was telling Eric and I about her thing. I was like, "Can you record this? Because this is amazing." She was great. Okay, so Sophia she was honored earlier but wasn't here, is a current senior who is going to Cornell. Um, Another point that we wanted to hit on is kind of are we current on the recent legislation? There's been a lot that has gone on in college admissions lately. Most notably, the Supreme Court put an end to affirmative action, which ends the race conscious admissions. So they can't consider race in the admissions process anymore. What that's led to is, from what we've read and from what colleges have told us, is they're starting to identify low-income students instead of race, and then they're asking the questions in a different way. So Dartmouth, for example, added an essay question. "It's not easy being green" was the frequent refrain of Kermit the Frog. How has difference been a part of your life, and how have you embraced it as part of your identity and outlook? So what colleges can do is ask the students to talk about it, but they can't ask the question explicitly. So that's been like a little change in since that has come out. Some of the colleges that previously didn't have supplemental questions have added those to allow students an opportunity to speak to it. As I referenced earlier, some of the more elite colleges are going back to requiring test scores, and they're citing that it actually hurt low-income students to not submit test scores, because in the Dartmouth, it was a lot there, but they presented their whole research. And colleges read test scores by high school. So if your average high school, ours is about a 1220, so that's our average SAT score from our high school. If your average SAT score from your high school is about 1,000 and you have 1,100, you may still want to submit that. And some of that, I think, is what the colleges were citing, that it hurt students when they didn't submit. Duke is unique in that they stopped assigning a point value to the essay. So when a college is evaluating a student, typically they'll assign a 1 to 5 point value for the essay, a 1 to 5 point value for rigor of classes, a 1 to 5 point value for extracurricular activities, and they come up with a number, and that's part of the rubric that they use to evaluate students. Duke said that due to AI, due to private college counselors writing essays, they're stripping the point value, and they're going to use the essays to learn more about the student, but not to evaluate their writing. So we'll see if that's a trend that continues. And then on the heels of affirmative action, some colleges have stopped using legacy in the admissions process. Johns Hopkins, Amherst, Wesleyan are three that have stopped using legacy in the process. So just some trends that we've noticed over the course of the past couple of years. The test optional policies have increased the number of schools that students apply to, which has then led to the percent accept rates dropping. Some examples are BU in 2021 had an 18% acceptance rate, 2024 was 11%. Northeastern had an 18% accept in 2021, 2024 was a 6%. What we've seen is historically a student with a 95 GPA and an 1,000 on the SAT, if they look at a school in Naviance and it's a 97 GPA and 1,300, it would scare them off and they wouldn't hit submit. Now more and more of those students are saying, oh, my GPA is close and we don't have to worry about the SAT, so they're going to hit submit. And it's just more and more students are applying to certain schools. So it presents as if it's gotten more competitive, and the numbers show that it has, but not all of them are competitive applications that they're getting. It's also increasing the middle 50% SAT score at those schools. So if you think about it, only the kids who do well on the tests are submitting the tests. So the average SAT scores are driving up. So that's been another trend. Colleges, more this year and last year, are diving deeper into the major that the student applies for. And students may or may not be accepted based on that major. They may get a letter saying that they applied as X major, but you've been accepted as Y major. Certain programs, nursing, business, pharmacy, have always been competitive, but have become a bit more competitive. And some of that speaks to they get more applications, they could be more selective. So that is something that we take into account when we meet with students. College concerns about yield impacting practices. So yield is a data point where if a student is accepted to the school, are they coming? And it's part of the college rankings. So colleges want that number to be high. So what colleges have started to do, and we're going to talk about it more in the next slide, is there's certain schools that are taking high percentages of their class from either early decision 1 or early decision 2. If you're not familiar with early decision, it's a binding contract. It's typically a November 1st deadline. If you get in, you have to go. The downside to early decision is you're not going to know what your financial aid package is. You can't change your mind. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but colleges have started using that as a way to increase their yield numbers. The waitlist numbers are rising. We had a high number of students waitlisted this year. BC sent out an email saying they were waitlisting 4,000 students, which is like crazy. So colleges are hedging their bets, I guess, to see who is going to come to them. And then with that said, we did have a handful of students pulled off the wait list over the last 2 weeks, which is super early. Usually you wouldn't hear from a wait list until end of June, July. So while they're waitlisting more, it seems like they are pulling off more as well. And then colleges offering different types of admissions. So semester abroad is a popular one where you're accepted, but you have to spend the first semester in London or somewhere else in Europe. Deferred acceptances to January. So they'll tell the student you're accepted, but you have to start in January of 2025. And then for the first semester, you can go to Nassau, you can go to a local school. Acceptances to satellite campuses. Penn State is big on this, where you'll be accepted to Penn State Aberdeen, but not University Park. And then colleges have different types of general studies programs where they may accept you instead of the typical programs. And then there was a lot of FAFSA changes this year. The rollout was a mess. It delayed everything. That's why our commit day is tomorrow. One key change is they removed historically, if you had 2 students in college that benefited you and you got more financial aid, they stripped that, and they're not considering that a thing anymore. But they increased the number of Pell Grants they're giving out. So I mentioned early decision. This is a slide that we show to our parents during our senior college night. The date is from August 2023. There's a link on the slide to the full spreadsheet. So just to explain what you're looking at, the first column is the early decision acceptance rate. So that's the percent accept from early decision. The second column is the regular decision accept rate. So the percent accept if you apply regular. Third column is ED to RD accept ratio. And the last column is super important. That's the ED admits as percent of the freshman class. So it's telling you what percent of students does the school take in terms of their whole student body. So if you look at a school like Carnegie Mellon, which their ED acceptance rate is 12.5, their RD acceptance rate is 11%, not much of a difference. And then their ED admits as percent of the freshman class is 33%. So Carnegie Mellon isn't playing the yield game, and you could apply regular decision to Carnegie Mellon and have a good chance of getting in. If you look at a school like Tulane, ED acceptance rate is 68%, regular decision acceptance rate is 8%, and they take 68% of their class from early decision. So I want to be very clear. I'm not showing this to encourage people to apply early decision. It's just a data point, because early decision is a big deal, and finances are a major factor in it, where you're committing not knowing your financial aid status. But it does play a factor in terms of when our counselors are meeting with students and they want to go to Tulane, and it may be a reach for them. There may be a discussion about, hey, they take a high number early decision. Is that something, that you may want to consider? And it's a practice that I don't personally agree with, but it's part of the process. Middlebury took 516 out of 735 students from early decision. So colleges talk about equity, but that's not very equitable. So as I said, the majority of this presentation was focused on college, based on 95% of our students going in that direction. We do support students outside of that in terms of career, direct to workforce, trade unions. Some examples for our special ed students is Access VR is run through the state, and they will assign an Access VR counselor to the student and family. They will meet with the family. They will provide financial assistance for vocational programs. Dr. Siegel, our high school psychologist, meets with, and part of the exit CSE meetings is, do the families want to meet with an Access VR counselor? He will coordinate the meeting. He'll meet with the student and the family with them to help with questions. We contract with the organization called Career Employment Options, who will come in and meet with our students and help with resume assistance, help with interview prep. That happens every year. Counselors are consistently collaborating with Barry Tech for vocational pathways. A big part of our 10th grade scheduling presentation is education on the Barry Tech programs that are available to our students, which are vocational, half-day vocational programs, wonderful opportunities for our students. We have high numbers each year, and there's guidance counselors at Barry Tech that are in communication with our counselors. As you've heard throughout the presentation, I hope I did a good job articulating. We have an individualized approach for all of our students. And then one important note, when I was meeting with Dr. Siegel, our life skills students are out in the community way more than some of our peer schools, which then benefits them when they go off to careers. And then there's OPWDD supports for students with disabilities. This graphic, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but my goal in showing this is we have a very thoughtful and intentional approach district-wide to how we educate students, and we have the same approach in the counseling department for helping students find their path after high school. The students aren't tracked. Students have the same opportunities. It's just a matter of what are their interests, what are their goals, and then as they progress through high school, the conversations may be different. Like every student has a junior meeting. It's not like we only meet with the students that are going to college. The conversation in that junior meeting may look a little bit different for a student that wants to go to a trade union compared to a student that wants to go to a highly competitive or a 2-year college. Tomorrow is decision day, which I was not happy about because I lack pictures of students wearing college gear. That was last year's class at decision day. But as I said, it was considerate of students that were committing late. This is a link to, it was all in the backup, but should we post this on the website or something? It's something that our families could access. As I started the presentation, I'm really proud of the work that our counselors do. And it's a process where if people weren't happy, I would get phone calls, and I don't get phone calls from people complaining about college, complaining about the counselors. They do a nice job, and the time that they put into it and the experience that they have is really wonderful. So thank you, and we'll take any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Dan, and your team for that great presentation. Who would like to start? No one's jumping in? This is unheard of. I will start with just one sort of,
Good or bad? I don't know.
yeah, overarching question while the trustees, I guess, get everything in order. What can we do as a board to help you get our students in to, whether it's more competitive, but just increase our acceptance rates in whatever college it is? I was just like, what can we do to help you?
That's a great question. I love that question. I think continue to support some of the things that we're doing in terms of the visits for counselors. You know, when we were asked to cut from the budget, I said to Chris, I said, is that something that we want to look at? And the answer was no. And I appreciated that because I do think that's a valuable thing that someone looking at it from the outside in may say, oh, that's fluff and we don't need that. But it is, those experiences are valuable for the counselors. Do you guys have any thoughts?
Even thinking in terms of policies or procedures. Okay. All right, trustees. I have more, but I will turn it over. Rich.
Thank you very much for the presentation, all the work that you did for that. I greatly appreciate it. We all do. In terms of comparison to other schools, I know that, and I'm assuming this is still true, I've been out of it for a little while, but regionality used to play a huge piece in terms of the applicant pool. So for example, I can tell you anecdotally, when my daughter graduated from here, the valedictorian of her class didn't apply early anywhere and didn't get into any of the schools that she wanted to go to. And when we looked at it further, we called college admission people, and they said part of the issue was all of the slots for this demographic were taken in the early applicant pool. So although she was certainly a competitive person, because of where she lived, she wasn't offered positions. Is that still a problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of came up, Chris and I were talking about it, like everything on Long Island is more competitive. Sports, college, the conversation came up in the Science Research Symposium that science research is more competitive. So the regionality does play a factor. And then that's why I included the early decision slide in the presentation. You know, how you apply can factor in as well. If she applied to a school that was taking 70% of students from early decision and she applied regular, they can be that much more selective when they're only picking 30% out of a higher number of applications too. So.
True.
I just want to add one thing. Can you guys go to the microphone? Because
Oh,
you're
yeah.
saying, I don't want anyone to mess it. Not for us, but it's being taped. Yeah. We really
Yes?
we want you to. I want everyone to hear this.
So what I was going to add to that is that the beautiful thing is that Long Island students, North Shore students in particular, are really high in demand. They're really well educated. So as much as it might be competitive, I would hate people to walk away feeling afraid of that. And I would hate people to walk away feeling afraid that if their family's circumstance doesn't permit early decision, because that is a blind financial decision, that's not the only option. We've really worked hard with our students to help them understand what it means to have demonstrated interest. And what that means to a college is that a college wants to know that you like them. Do you like me? Yes. Well, I like you back. That sort of a thing. We do that through those visits that Mr. Doherty was talking about, putting students together with those representatives, as well as encouraging them to be able to reach out and helping them craft their emails and visit the campuses and check in and all of that kind of stuff.
Thank you. Also, in looking at the backup material, I don't know how you guys do it. It's mind-boggling to me how many students are clustered within a certain grade point average. And then when I was looking at it, I looked at it pretty carefully to see, between the grade point average, between their SAT scores, if they took the SAT or the ACT, and then the colleges that were listed in there. A lot of it at times didn't make sense to me. And I'm sure it's frustrating for you, but how does the district, the high school profile come into play? Do you provide that to each college the kid is applying to?
Yeah, so every summer, usually in August, July, August, I update the high school profile with our stats, our average SAT score, the courses we offer. Some of it's consistent year to year, some of it changes, but that's uploaded as part of the submission package that the counselors submit through Naviance. So the high school profile goes with it, the counselor letter of recommendation goes with it. There's a Common App form that the counselors fill out for every student that goes with the application, along with the transcript. And what I referenced earlier is, colleges do rank high schools and they rate them in different ways. And, our kids are doing really well. So I'm assuming our rank is high at the colleges, but that does factor into it, yes.
Maria?
Boy, I have a lot. This was fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Shea and Ms. Fawcett. Thank you for being here. It's great to get down and dirty with you guys. It's really good stuff. So I want to pick up on a bunch of the things you've already touched on, go just a little bit deeper, and then a couple of other miscellaneous questions. But I want to be disabused of this notion that I'm forming as I've been learning more. ED seems a lot like a racket for the colleges. It's really disturbing. It's really, the tiniest little bit of advantage for the student, I think I just heard in what Mr. Shea was saying, but a student who really wants to go somewhere maybe is going to go ED because we're competing against ourselves, here in Nassau County. I'm just really struggling getting my head around this whole thing. I'm wondering, what are the consequences for saying you're going to come, or frankly saying, yeah, I applied ED, but I'm not going to come. So either that, or I'll commit to coming, but then I hear my financial aid package and it's hopeless and I have to withdraw, which of course puts the family in a terrible stage. But I'm trying to, what are the consequences?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it does come up in our office routinely. The party line for us is it's a binding contract. As counselors, we're supposed to advise ethically that if you're committing there, there's a piece that the counselors sign off on saying that they've told the student that they have to do that. With that said, are there people that break that? Yes. Are there people that get their financial aid package and really can't afford it? Like, no one's going to come and drag you to the school. So that does happen. I've had students previously when I was a high school counselor where the family committed ED, father lost his job, and they were like, I can't pay for BU anymore, and they were let out of the release. So there are ways to get out of it. As counselors, we wouldn't
Right.
support
I mean,
that strategy, but
Right. Certainly the ethical considerations
Yes,
are
yeah,
real. And
yeah.
none of us want to, I'm
Right,
not going to tell
right.
my kid, yeah, apply to 5 places ED and then we'll deal with it,
Right.
But I guess I am also kind of wondering, this also seems like an area that could be ripe for litigation, I'm surprised that there hasn't been some huge, on the order of the affirmative action decision, that there hasn't been some kind of,
I mean,
I'm just
the
gobsmacked by
colleges
this.
would, and you may be about to say this, defend early decision by saying they take a high percentage of low-income students early decision, knowing they're going to give them financial aid. Like if you break it down, if you look at the data that colleges report, a lot of early decision is low-income students, first-generation students, meaning the parents haven't gone to college, athletes that they want to get in through that pool, and then the pool is a little bit smaller for affluent students or Caucasian students, or
I'm sorry, what am I missing there? Those are the same, I mean, the low-income students are the same ones being asked now to make the commitment without knowing their financial aid package.
One of the changes that also happened is colleges can now recruit those students and offer them those pieces. That changed last year, where that wasn't part of the game, where like High Point will target certain income areas and say apply ED and we're going to give you scholarships and we're going to give you this, and like they get in front of it in that way. So that is a part of it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go on and on about it, but I can't imagine that how you are working in this situation seems just impossible, and I thank you for everything you're doing. I mean, just this idea even that the colleges rank the high schools, I guess it's all part of the deal, but
To Dave's point, it does get confusing where we have top students that are waitlisted at a school that we thought they would get into, and then they get into a school that we didn't think they would get into, and then they come to us trying to explain it all, and we try to reach out to the colleges and they don't answer the phone, or they give a party line answer, so it does get complicated.
yeah, please.
Yeah.
You asked how it could impact a family if they renege on the contract. I've never seen it litigated where someone has broken that contract and then got chased down for tuition, right? So that doesn't happen. But I have heard stories where if a student from your school district broke that contract, we're going to be less likely to take the next student or students who signed on to that contract because you didn't hold the integrity of that contract. So that could impact a year, 2 years, 4 years down the road. That's a big deal for the community, but I know it's a family decision. From the college's standpoint, you all have probably heard the news about Stony Brook, who accepted X amount of students, but more came than they expected. And so now they don't have housing for them. That's a terrible public relations problem to have for your best customers. But had they had an early decision tool, they don't. So you can't apply early decision to Stony Brook. But had they could have mitigated that problem by knowing that the first 50% of the students I took are absolutely coming. I only have to guess on the other 50%. So it's a hugely advantageous tool for them to manage who's coming, how many coming, and how many mistakes can I make and still get away with it. So it does favor them. It is lopsided. You're correct. It's lopsided in favor of the colleges, but you do get an advantage if you slide.
So Stony Brook doesn't do ED, but other SUNY schools do? Some do, some don't. Okay. So it's a school by school decision.
I can't think of any.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So, is that the same I'm just curious if that's the same in other states, that the public systems routinely do not do ED? It could be.
The larger public schools have rolling admissions where they'll accept applications kind of starting in September on an ongoing basis, and they don't have early decision, but it does vary state to state, school to school.
Do you attribute that to it being, it's a public system? We want it to be as available to as many students as possible in our area as, I mean, that sounds lovely. It sounds like what it should be. Okay. All right. Stop editorializing. Uh, um, okay. I did want to thank, since you, Mr. Doherty gave you the credit, Mr. Shea, I did think that the comparison graphs were, tables were really interesting. I had one question regarding those numbers in either direction. So this is against, unnamed school number 1 and unnamed school number 2, where the numbers differ, whether we're higher or they're higher, in a significantly number of cases, the difference is quite large. And I'm just wondering how you might be able to account for that. We're at, I should have marked the ones I wanted to pick out, but there were some with the percentage point, it's like 15 percentage point difference that we're higher or that they're higher. Just can't quite make sense of that.
There's certain trends, and it was the same at my previous school, where here at North Shore, some of our top students don't apply to those schools, and at the competitor school, they might. We had a parent contact one of the counselors and say, "Oh, everyone from Roslyn gets into Texas, and none of our North Shore kids do." And we looked at the numbers, and a lot of our North Shore kids don't apply to Texas, and they have their top students applying there for the business program or whatever. So some of that can play a factor in it.
Did it also go to your suggestion earlier, or you're telling us that the colleges are ranking us? They're ranking our schools. So by definition, they're giving preference to one school over another?
Colleges do a lot of data mining, and they're going to look at your prior students who came to that school and how did they do, and if they were adequately prepared for our curriculum at such and such school, right? So there are some schools that feed a lot of students in, and they've done well, and they're great. We know the product we're getting at this school from that school. And then it's more of a sure bet. I can rest assured that this person has the math background to go STEM. I know, whatever. So they do that. They'll even do it by major. They're just running analytics all the time.
Okay.
So I think that's part of it too. So if we've had more students going to a certain college and they've been successful, we're going to get more in than our neighbor who didn't, and vice versa. And if they get in and don't go, colleges don't like to be rejected. That's true. So if we accept, like Tulane, who takes 68% of their kids' early decision, they get offended if they accept you and you don't come. And if you have a history of not coming, and that's been certainly for North Shore, that's been true. We have a lot of people over the years who applied to Tulane and go to Boston. And Tulane's like, wow, every time we say yes, you say no. Not going to say yes. So there are patterns that they measure over time that can help us or hurt us, depending on our behavior. So,
An amazing education for me tonight. Thank you. Could you talk just a little bit more, completely different topic here, just about the whole legacy question, which used to be, certainly with the top colleges, used to be a big deal, and now it's being changed at turned off. So to
It
speak.
depends on the school. So some
Okay.
schools, legacy is still a thing, and it's still a practice where if your parent went there, it can benefit the child to go there. Other schools, as I mentioned, like Johns Hopkins, Wesleyan, have said we're not going to do that anymore. We're changing our practice, and we're not going to take that into consideration. Other factors with that is just having someone go there. They also should donate money, and
Right.
it's like there's a lot of factors that go into that. But it would be the next kind of chip to fall after the affirmative action, because it's giving preference to a certain subgroup, and that was the argument in the Supreme Court case, is that any subgroup shouldn't get preference. So
Right. Okay.
it wouldn't shock me if that was next to the Supreme Court.
Okay. Just a few more. When you talk about visiting colleges, I'm curious how you advise, or do you advise families is there some kind of checklist that you give them to say, you know, this is what you should be looking for? Or, you know, if you're traveling and you want to go look at a college, yeah, I don't know I don't know how to phrase the question,
Yeah, I
but
think I
is there a
have.
checklist of items that you think that kids who, if you think kid thinks they might be really serious,
Yes, yeah, so
what
we-
should they be looking for?
Ms. Fawcett mentioned demonstrated interest earlier, so they want to make sure that they check into the admissions office. Most schools are going to have an admissions session where they'll give an info session and then a tour. We recommend that they do that if they can. If an ideal situation would be to go when students are on campus and see the cafeteria and sit in on a class if they're permitted to do that. Outside of that, anything?
So I want to understand fully your question because I think it's multi-part, right? So part of it is what do we advise when they're visiting a campus? So part of the junior conference and those other meetings that Mr. Doherty referenced in his presentation is that it's tailored specifically to your child. So if you haven't yet and you do meet with your child's counselor one day about college, that's what you will have, is this customized sort of tell me about you. And by that point, we know your children. You know, we know your children a bit. We learn more about them in the process too. And then it's a back and forth. And what we always say to the students is that this is the jumping off point, right? So we have this conversation, we develop a recommended list of colleges, take a look at these places because it sounds like what you're interested in. When you're there, you're gonna be thinking about the things that you want, list it out in a chart, you know, like all of these sorts of steps that you can see. And I'm sure we can provide that for you. We give a folder to the juniors that gives that information. But also, when you were speaking, I thought of an email I just got from a parent who said, hey, so we're going down to Towson in Maryland. What else could we see along the way? And that happens too. So then we say, okay, because every college visit is a good visit, because then you come back and you say, hey, Mrs. Fawcett, I hated Towson. It was way too big for me. But you know what I really loved is Loyola in Maryland. And then we're off to the races and we can do lots of stuff where we can talk about a lot of things because we've had the luxury of visiting those colleges ourselves and really understanding like what's there and helping each other with that when we haven't been in those places. Does that?
Yeah, I think you really got to, thank you for understanding better than I articulated it, what I was asking, that sense of like, there's different levels of getting to know a school and whether it's going to be a right fit. And you guys visit schools all the time. So, and you're taking in certain things, thinking about, you know, hundreds of students at a time. A family's taking in, you know, just their one. And it's just that, yeah, I think that sense of, you know, that I guess a lot of what you can do without checking in at admissions, if you don't want to go that far, is just sort of getting a feel for the place, right? Getting a sense of the size, getting a sense of, I mean, even if the architecture is important to you, or, you know, does it feel like an Ivy League place, even if it isn't, or, you know, yeah, so I've just
But
kind
the
of,
people look like your people, right? Like,
Yeah.
who are these folks?
how friendly are they, or, yeah.
The other thing that I guess I should have mentioned, but I'll mention now, is that we have the luxury of having had some of your students. We've had, you know, the Campis and the Galatis beforehand already, and we know who their children are and what that was like for them, and that also guides us. So while we're talking to other students and getting the vibe, we know, and you know, we've all been around for a while, so.
Okay, I think I just have one more topic I want to cover because based on the really great backup material that was available for this presentation. One of the first ones I looked at was the notes of recent events, and you had a slide on it as well. I was really taken, and you alluded to this, but with the notes from Clemson about how choice of major has been playing a more and more important role. And I'm trying to get my head around that in relation to our constant vigilance for mental wellness, and how we're trying to manage student stresses and pressures. And at the same time now we're learning that kids really need to think about knowing what they want to do before they even get there. You know, like this sort of concept, the it sounds like it's my old-fashioned concept of a liberal arts education being a time to explore, at least for the first year or two. Now, you need to know ahead of time, you need to be building that resume towards a specific topic. It seems to me it's first of all, it's pushing farther and farther younger, know what you want to do, and it's ratcheting up the pressure on these kids at the same time. It's just another really tough thing to accept, that this is what education is all about now.
And I hope I'm not feeding into that anxiety with what we're sharing. We're just sharing information that we get year to year, and that is something that has come up. The Clemson email I thought was interesting because they specifically said, a lot of you aren't going to get the major that you applied for. Some of you were denied because of the major you applied for. And those are conversations that the counselors will have. We had one student this year that applied for a certain major to go to Penn State, didn't get in. And through our connection with Lori Wax, the counselor advocated for the student, said, this is a qualified student. What happened here? And they said, well, that's one of the more competitive majors we have. Should the student change their major to this college, he could reapply, and the student got in. So there are situations that happen where the counselors can support the student in terms of advising them for a certain major for a particular school. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. That major, the nursing program at that school may be more competitive and your grades may not be at that level, but nursing at another school still may be, advisable. I wish I had an answer for the mental health piece as the director of counseling, but, and my goal with the slide where I showed the percent accepts of our students in terms of where they get in, that 110 of them are getting into 60% of the colleges they apply to, is it does end up working out. And that was
encouraging.
A big piece of the alumni assembly that we have. Is the alumni come back, and every year there's about 2 students that say, I didn't get into the school that I wanted to go to, and I was so crushed, and it was an awful time for me. With that said, I love the school that I'm at now, and I'm doing great, and I'm involved in this, and I feel like I'm a leader. We had a student last year who said, I think the school that I would have gone to, I don't know how well I would have done, and I'm doing really well here, and I'm a leader, and I'm going to be an RA next year, and that's more valuable, and the students do get that message, but in the moment it's super hard.
And all of this, I think, is just a testament to the great work you and your department are doing, though, that the kids are getting into 60% of their choices is pretty phenomenal. And given all of the things stacked against success, sometimes I'm really impressed by that.
Feel sad in a way because I love liberal arts education too. And I don't want anyone to feel afraid of what Clemson has, or be frightened off by what Clemson has said, because the conversation I think that we all have with our students is that how do we know at age 16, 17, 18 what we want to do for the rest of our lives? Because we could go around the room and around the whole school, and we always do with parents too, and say, are you where you thought you were going to be when you were celebrating your sweet 16? And the answer is no, right? So one of the things that we do have access to is the ability to call someplace like Stony Brook and speak with our colleague there and say, I have a student who's really interested in biology and I know it's really competitive. Can I just run your stats, the stats by you? And then they can advise us. And sometimes oftentimes they'll say, not bio, undecided. So liberal arts can prevail. You can still take some other things too. It's okay to be undecided. We have a lot of students who are afraid to be undecided because of that pressure from the outside world that says, have your mind made up now. But we all know that that's not real. And I just got back from a 2-day event sponsored by Binghamton University, and that's exactly what they said on the very first day to all the counselors that were there with this event. It was amazing, where they said, we know our students explore, and that's what we want to do. So you come with an idea, and then an idea takes off from there, and it was great. So it's all good.
Fascinating. Yeah, thank you. All right, I'm overstaying my welcome. I really appreciate, I do have more questions, but I think someone else is bound to cover them. So thank you very much for a great presentation.
You know how to contact us if you have questions.
Sorry?
You know how to contact us if you have questions.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Lisa Cashman.
Thank you so much for this.
This is
great-
like a private counseling
I
session.
know, we're having, because we have like a large
even
percentage
say
of
it.
us have entering freshmen, not, no, but obviously we're thinking about all the students. I also love following the Instagram page. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, oh, what's this one dated? There's a new one. Like it's pretty exciting to just kind of get to see the enthusiasm and people making these big choices and see how kids are scattering around the nation. It's pretty cool. I had just a couple questions. So, do you have a sense from your counseling how many of our students are using outside resources, like outside college counseling tools and outside SAT scores, and how much community resources are being spent on those types of tools? Not dollar amount, but just like
number of
is it pretty common?
People typically do SAT prep, but
Joanne was saying that SAT prep seems to be more common than private college consulting, but I also know some families don't share that with the counselor. So I do think, and it was a part of the presentation, the services that our counselors are able to do at a small public high school with low caseloads, which is another way you can continue to support us, is don't cut any of my counselors. Is more than at some other high schools where the caseloads are so high that the counselor can't meet with the student and sit down and do the Common App, or they may not make that phone call to the school because they don't know the student that well. So I don't have an exact answer to that. I know it is more common in neighboring districts than I feel like it is here, but.
Yeah, I was just curious because I've heard, when you speak to kids of a certain age nationally, it just seems like it's a cottage industry, is how to help kids get into college. So I just was curious about the penetration here at North Shore, and you guys would be in the fields, have a lot more access to that sense than I would. Thank you. And anecdotally, and this could be chicken and egg, it seems like the colleges that we have relationships with who are coming here and having experience or that we're visiting, we have high penetration and kids are going there. So I'm just wondering about that relationship in terms of, is there an opportunity there to expand our relationships into different schools or more schools, or is that useful, not useful? Do we have the bandwidth? I just was curious about that chicken and egg kind of observation.
Well, yeah, I mean, some of it is what Mr. Shea alluded to earlier, where if we had students that were accepted at a certain school, they don't end up going next year, that counselor may not come here, and, we could reach out and, try to bring them in and visit the school and things like that. But I don't know, do you guys have, yeah.
I don't think it's good to get, and I don't know if this is your impression. I don't know. I can tell you for certain, I can't get a kid in to a school with a phone call, right?
Clearly, that is not my
impression. The last people who did, they made a movie about it, and some people did some time. So, but it does help to have relationships in terms of being able to pick up a call to a colleague who's visited our school and say, hey, Michelle, remember when we talked last? I've got somebody who's really intriguing, whatever, and maybe it opens their eyes to something. But there's no magic in those relationships, and we can't take them to dinner and buy them a bottle of wine and hope that they'll take our kid next, right? That's not a thing. But I do think having exposure, like when I'm 31 years here on the job.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I remember you.
I remember his first day.
But when I first started here, our students went Boston to DC exclusively. And this year we had 20 or 30 applications to Clemson, 35 to South Carolina, 28 to Tennessee, 32 to Georgia. I'm like, so they have expanded over time. And some of that's probably because we've gone and we've seen these places and we've talked it up. But there are also some national trends that are playing into it. And it is helpful for us to get a bigger footprint and to see some other places that are outside the bubble, as they call it. And if we can open eyes, I think that I wanted to address something that you had said earlier. It's important to have a number of schools that you think can fit you because, to quote another Dr. Seuss book, wherever you go, there you are. You're going to make that place home. It's not home until you make 1,000 decisions every day and you create your home. And you could pick 15 different colleges, and if you had 15, if you're in the multiverse, you can go to all 15, have a great experience. They all have the tools to move you on and get you successful, right? You just need to be comfortable with that idea. Every other product you buy in the market, I want a car, I can afford a car, I can get the car I want, I can get the color I want, the car I want. If I want a house in this neighborhood, I can afford it, I can get it. But because I can afford a college does not mean I can get it. But I can get a college experience equivalent to it. We just have to have a bigger viewpoint, I think is what is important. I think that's what we work with our families on, is saying, oh, you like this school? Here's 6 other schools very similar, going to give you the same resources, same feel. And that's kind of how we do it. So I think it kind of addressed what you were asking, definitely what you were asking.
Thank you. I agree. And I think something that was my big takeaway in scanning the data is just what you said, is that there's a place for everybody. And even when you didn't expect it, if you're looking at them, we're looking at aggregate data and matching test scores, but people are going to colleges, they're being successful, and that's very encouraging, especially when you hear about the increase in the competition level. But that's at a certain level. There are many schools where we have the same amount of kids who apply are getting in, like very high application success rate at many, many great schools. So that was a big takeaway of mine. So great job matching kids to the right school, because yes is a yes. I did want to memorialize with you guys a conversation that we had with the community recently in terms of the extracurriculars, and the community really expressed, we met with the business community and they expressed interest in sort of supporting some of the schools. I know that that's not part of this transition and college conversation per se, but I have you guys, and it is something kind of fresh that came out of some of our budget community talks. So, and Dr. Z, I'm sure can expand more, but I do think it's a unique opportunity that was expressed by the business community to be able to offer that freshly. And so I didn't want to miss the opportunity to kind of bring that up.
Chris did loop Eric and I in on that with some ideas of ways to kind of expand our internship offerings and career fairs and bringing more people from the community in to speak to our students. We did a career, not a career fair, but a career week at the middle school this year where community members came in and spoke. It was great. It would be nice to do something like that at the high school, even connected to different electives and in that area.
Yeah, and I think it does fit into a conversation about transitions, because it's part of that preparation of being able to maneuver in a business community. And I think it's not something we really talk about that much. We think about what happens in the school buildings, but it's so important. And so I just was excited to be able to kind of memorialize that in the context of being successful out after, leaving the nest. The only other question I had was in terms of opportunities. And again, what I don't know about this is pretty much everything, is the district profile. I just am, curious what the assets and liabilities there for us are, and how often that, how much we differ from other schools that we're competing with, on the Gold Coast. It just seems like such an important kind of document, and I just wonder. I don't know a lot about it, so
Yeah. I mean,
it was just a question I had as to where our strengths are that we should capitalize on, and maybe where our weaknesses are that we could look to remediate.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I share the profile every summer with Dr. Z to share with you all. I'm open to ideas that you have. When I first started as a director, I didn't have a lot of familiarity. My director created it at Herrick's when I worked there. I did compare about 10 of our competitor schools to try to create our profile, and we added some things and took some things out. But yeah, we can certainly take a fresh look at it.
I don't know that that's warranted. Like, I'm not looking to redo the wheel. I just had the question about it, so I was presenting that.
Yeah, and it's pretty consistent with our neighbors, and it highlights our strengths.
David?
Thank you. I appreciate this. I have a lot of questions, and some of them may be more probing than some of my peers. But I just want to start against the backdrop of thanking you for a very good report, a data-driven report. I want to thank Mr. Shea and Ms. Fawcett for being here tonight and supporting this review. I want to start by saying that even before all of this, it's worth noting once again that we have the highest high school graduation rate in the county, and none of this happens for these transitions. You can't transition until you complete your first step. And so doing that for all of our students is certainly worth recognizing. That said, with regard to the way that North Shore distinguishes itself, I should also say, for the record, I used to be a college admissions officer, associate director of admissions for a small school. So I did read these transcripts. I did read the school profiles, and I had conversations with two different people in the industry within this past week, knowing this review was coming up. And the thing that both of them said to me was, "Oh, North Shore, yeah, good school, but that's not going to distinguish you or help any kids get in to colleges." And so I think about what we do all day long and what you do all day long, what I know we all do internally here. And so I thought to myself, well, these folks don't know what we're doing here, because when you think of all those quote unquote competitor districts, one of which I went to and got me into one of these prestigious schools, and which I'm proud of, and I thought was a very good education. But I think that we all know they all kind of do a somewhat similar thing. They all do focus more on test prep. They all do focus more on outcomes as opposed to the process of what you're doing here. They're more about the ends than the means, per se. And so I do wonder, yes, Mr. Shea, you're not going to call people up and say, hey, here's a bottle of wine. Can I get into, XYZ school? Or 2 bottles of wine if it's that competitive. But throw in some cheese, But I do think that schools understanding what it is that makes us different might be something that, with the school profile, the first paragraph was just general biographical info. It wasn't until about the 3rd or 4th sentence of the second paragraph where we talked about authentic learning, and all the different things that we all talk about so much and what we do here. Visiting schools, seeing schools, it's a great list of schools you go to. And I've been in your shoes also, where, because I should, full disclosure also, my wife is the head of the counseling department at Nassau, and another resident here in town who happens to be one of our very best friends is the head of advising at Nassau. So when we go on trips and things, we go to visit, we go to see colleges. We went on an RV trip and we visited 8 schools along the way, not because of my kids, but just because we're curious, because she wants to know how to help her students who are transferring from Nassau to those places. The idea of somehow conveying what we're doing that's different, that is differentiated, I think is an ongoing challenge, because people look at us and they say, whatever they say, another, I guess I'll just put it out there, they're, privileged Gold Coast school where all these kids have all the advantages and they're just doing the same thing everyone else is doing. And we're not doing the same thing that everyone else is doing. And kudos to the administration and,
And to us.
well, I like to think that we have given that lead. That's what we want. That's because we represent the community, and that's what the community wants, to differentiate us in that way. And so I don't know that's necessarily fair that coming from North Shore is not going to be helping us per se, because in addition to the great report you did, in addition to the good work you're doing, the results this year were certainly very positive. But I think that's something that should be a continuing focus for us in identifying not the relationships that we have individually with these schools, but somehow conveying that when you see North Shore, it does mean something different. The dual IB AP program that we have, the number of students who participate, the music programs, all the different things that we talk about. But the approach to education, I think we could probably convey that a little more pervasively to some of these other places. So that was one, I guess, more comment than question that I had. I wanted to comment on something you had said, Mr. Doherty, which is that we want smart consumer decisions for our students. And I have noticed, and I'm sure everyone here has noticed, that the notion of a 4-year degree has taken on a more transactional connotation than it used to be. It now seems more and more, what am I going to get? What are they going to give me? Because it is ungodly expensive to go to these private colleges. I mean, the numbers are they're just astronomical. And so students and families have to look at it that way. But I wonder what we're doing, and this is more of a question, what we're doing to frame that internally with regard to the decisions students are making that will prepare them for their next transition, which goes a lot longer because, so they're higher degrees. But I wonder, I'm not quite phrasing it in the way I want, but I guess what I'm saying is if people look at a college education, a bachelor's degree, as what it's going to get you in terms of earning potential and versus what you're spending, that cost benefit analysis, I think, ignores unquantifiable benefits of that 4-year education. I know that a lot of our students feel that way. A lot of our families feel that way. And I know a lot of conversations about college in the 8 years that I've been on this board, which feels like 31, have centered around that transactional nature, that it's so expensive and you got to get your best, you got to get your AP classes because it's going to save you, $3,000 worth of credits every semester, or you have to go to the school that's going to quote unquote buy your matriculation by giving you a $5,000 or $12,000. Does the counseling department have a position with families? Do we let families come to us and say, these are our priorities, and we say, okay? Do we challenge those notions? What can we say about that?
I think a big part of the junior meeting, and you guys probably speak to it better than I can, but is hearing from the family as to what their goals are and what they can afford. And we encourage them to have those it's a part of the junior college night, is have those conversations from parent to child as early as possible, so that the expectations are fair when they get to the application process. We've had students year to year who get into a particular more elite college, and then they're given a full ride to a less elite college, in air quotes. And the families are kind of pushing them towards the full scholarship school because that's a better decision for them based on the finances. But I do feel, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but it's an individual conversation for each family in terms of what their goals are, and that kind of pathway image that I showed is really individualizing the process for those families, but also educating them to the point that you just said. There's some families that come into it and say, I know that I'm going to go to med school, so I'm going to go to SUNY Binghamton, because even though I could get into a private school that may be viewed as a better school, but I know I'm going to have to pay, for that. So I'm going to do this. And the counselors will talk about that. And a lot of that comes from, hey, what are your goals? What do you want to do post college? Where do you want to end up? If a student wants to go into finance, maybe going to a more elite college and paying for that out of the gate may work for them. If that's not the goal, then, it's kind of a different conversation. Did I say that okay?
Think about our science department. Like, we saw these great, incredible students tonight. We saw, some of them were very little. They have a lot of incredible things to accomplish ahead of them. But those students who were doing science research didn't know what science research was when they went into high school. Right. And these students who were playing in the band didn't know the difference between a symphonic band and a jazz band until we brought that to them and said that things like science research and, playing in these other ensembles could bring them something different. I wonder how the counseling department parallels that in terms of bringing that awareness to students and families.
It's a great point. Do you want to talk to him?
Just one example, I guess. So there are more students with perfect 1600s at Ohio State than there are at Harvard. There are more valedictorians at Ohio State than there are at Harvard. So people who think if I go to a state school, I'm not going to be surrounded by my intellectual peers, that could be proven to be false, right? But not every family knows that or is aware of that. Some don't care. But I think when you start to you highlight things like that, or you say there's an honors program at this place where you will absolutely be accepted. Not only will you be accepted, you'll be given their biggest scholarship, but you'll get priority registration. You'll always get the class you want with the professor you want at the time you want. You're going to pay half the price of everybody else on that campus. They're going to take all your AP and IB credits, and you can graduate in 3 years. And in fact, you can get a master's in 4. So you can, when you start to bring those things up, then people are like, oh, didn't know it existed. Kind of cool to think about. Let's go home and discuss. So I think we do that. And then, you know, certain schools have programs that other schools don't have, and we'll talk about that. But I think you asked if we have a position. So I can't speak. I think I can speak for the whole department, but I don't have a position. My position is your position, right? So you tell me what you want, what you're looking for as a family, and I'm going to help, like, point you in that direction or show you some options. But I'm going to try along the way to open your eyes to some things that you just didn't know existed. And if they become part of your decision matrix, awesome. If they don't, you know, that's fine. But I think, and we have a very seasoned crew, so I think those discussions are happening. But I do think there's value to be found, not just monetary, but in the different products that are offered by different.
It's great. I appreciate that answer a lot. I think that really does answer my question, because there is so much more out there, and there's so much, as you very well know, so much of the stress, so much of there are kids who go into 9th grade and they're already worrying about these. We're living in a world where, as you said, there were 17 valedictorians at Jericho High School. And I can only assume that means they all had perfect scores. I couldn't just all average, you know, the same 99.2 or whatever it was. And so some of our students feel that pressure. And so bringing that to them sort of transition into my next kind of point, which is something you brought up earlier. And Mr. Doherty, I appreciate you mentioning this, is from the opposite end, the historical stigma that some students may feel about going to a 2-year college. How do we manage that? Because I also know of many students, this is my next question, but I'll bring this up too, who went to that first choice that they wanted to, or the best choice for them at the time. And again, our very good friend has like a little cohort of like 6 or 7 North Shore grads that she's working with at Nassau to help them, because the first choice of school didn't work out. And they're going on to great things. They're moving on to different 4-year colleges. They're having good experiences. But what they thought they wanted as a 17-year-old was not what they realized they wanted as an 18 or 19-year-old. And I also think about, I'll just transition next to this question, athletes in particular. And really explaining to them what it means to be an NCAA athlete, and the segregation from the rest of the community, the amount of time, the commitment, all of those things. So it's like 3 questions I had at once, but.
Oh, I want to speak about the 2-year college thing, because what I think has been really interesting. I haven't been here quite as long as Mr. Shea, only 27 years. So in that time, I've seen the community evolve, sort of say the same all at once. And one of the things that I think has been really awesome is the acceptance of a 2-year school and the normalization of starting somewhere else, particularly if you have different goals, right? So those goals may be financially related for your family. They may be academic because you haven't achieved what you wanted to achieve, or you're a late bloomer or whatever. They might be athletic. You might be starting at Nassau on their football team because they're the only, JC around here with one, right? So you want to go there and then build your skills. But also, I remember back to about 25 years ago when I had my very first student who got a January admit from Cornell University, and they specifically said, go to Nassau Community College to that person. So all those things have helped to normalize that idea. That doesn't preclude people from feeling bad about where they didn't get in, right? And so that's a whole other thing that we definitely spend a lot of time with, and have just spent a great deal of time with over the last, say, 6 weeks or so. A little longer, because we had a lot of kids do early this year, early actions. That disappointment does fade. And interestingly, one of the things I think that's been brought up is what happens when, I think one was about wait list. I have a student who got off a wait list. The student got off the wait list at a very expensive school, had already committed to a state school. We had a whole long conversation that included me I'm not as mathematically adept as some of my colleagues, but I like to say I can do college math. So I, ran the finances for the girl, and we kind of talked about it. She talked about it with her folks. So we do that sort of thing too, to kind of educate that. Athletically, it's interesting that you say what you do about NCAA. My daughter's best friend ran track Division I for a school where they essentially owned her for 3 seasons, and that's what track does to you if you're a distance runner. So that's been a great perspective for me to give to others. Also, those other students who we've had who've come back and said that, and they end up at Nassau with your wife, right? And they're there because it doesn't work out. And certainly those are some of our students too, who've gone away someplace, and it's a great place to regroup. We also spend some time with those students. So those students in our community here who have not found happiness where they are and are looking for a different happiness very often reach back to us to get moored, I guess, a little bit, to say, where do I go next? And we help them through that as well. Did that help?
It did. I think it all circles back to this, for me, the core, which is we are North Shore and we have values here. Not in terms of beliefs. People can believe obviously all the different things that they want, but in terms of respecting the individual, in terms of our SVOs, in terms of things that we bring to the table that we consider a thorough education that is going to launch this transition. That is something that is really strong. And I'm hoping and hearing that the counseling department, obviously we have to be sensitive to what families want. And, if dad went to Michigan and I'm going to Michigan, yeah, great, go to Michigan. But that might not be the right thing for that kid, because that kid doesn't understand who they are. In the same way that a student who, parents may say, we're not doing college at all, to be able to bring kids to a point where they're exposed to the variety of options out there that are consonant with what we believe academically and institutionally, I think is a goal that I just wanted to emphasize.
I love to ask kids, my juniors, what would you do if you weren't going to go to college, in their college meeting, just to hear what they have to say, because it's always interesting and it's a little baffling. It's become more and more baffling, sadly, because of that great pressure to go to college. But yeah, that's part of it. Appreciate it.
I can't thank you enough for the presentation and for the two of you being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Colasiopa.
I'll be very quick. It's very late, and you all have to be at work very early. Thank you so much for the presentation, for the backup. There was so much great information in the backup as well. I just have a couple of really quick questions. I know we don't necessarily have, I think this is not information you're going to be able to give us now, but I'm just curious if it's something we can maybe try to track. I do wonder about the success rate of our kids staying in college. So, if they're going to a 2-year college, do they finish? Are they finishing their 4-year degree? I feel like it's probably something that, most schools would be interested in. Just I feel like we do such a good job, and I just wonder how successful our children are once they leave here.
I did put in the
Did I miss it?
information from IDW Warehouse.
Okay.
Didn't
Maybe it's I might have to change the settings or something. I'll email it to you all, but it was information that tracks, nationally they track 4-year, 5-year, 6-year graduation rates. So I did look at, and we're above the national average pretty significantly across, you have to go back. I think I was tracking 2014 because it goes through 7-year graduation rates, but it is in the backup. I don't have it memorized, but it is in there. So I anticipated the question. But,
okay, thank you. And that's what I had a feeling we probably did better than the national.
I might have to
average,
change the settings though, because I think it was a Google Doc, but I'll do that.
Oh yeah, maybe I did try.
Yeah, I couldn't open it.
Okay.
And I know it's a small number that don't go to college, but I am still interested in those children. And I was so impressed by the BOCES presentation that we were given last year, and I do wonder, how successful those kids are, and are the students that are going to BOCES, are they going to college? Are they getting a trade? I'm just curious about the outcomes with those students. And lastly, our special ed population. I don't think I saw anything in the backup, but I was just curious about children with IEPs. Obviously 95% of our kids are going to college. So, I know our special ed population is in there. I'm just curious, like if there are differences in the outcomes, or, are those kids getting into the colleges they're applying to, or, are there any differences there?
So to tackle the BOCES question first, I think it's mixed. We have some BOCES students that go to a 4-year school. We have students that go to a 2-year school. We have some students that decide to go to a trade union or go off to a vocational school. But the majority of them, I do think, go 2 or 4-year for the most part. Like if we have 10 seniors that are going to BOCES, probably 8 or 9 of them are going off to a 2 or 4-year school. I mean, we could dive deeper and look at those students specifically. Some of those students, I remember Ms. Gentile shared with me, she had a student that went to Cortland and created a whole business using her, the trade that she'd learned at BOCES, so the cosmetology. So it's, you have those stories too, where she's kind of funding her her education. So, and then what was the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
Just the children with
Special ed,
IEPs.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that last slide where I talked about Dr. Siegel and connecting students to Access VR is part of the conversation for all special ed students. Some families say, nope, they're going to college. We don't need that. Other families will accept that. And then, we do bring people in to work with our life skills students and students that aren't going to college right away. But the majority of our special ed students are going off to 2 or 4-year colleges as well. So,
Thank you so much. I have a 6th grader. I'm hoping you guys are still there when he's.
I'm hoping they're still here too.
Yeah. Jim?
I'll echo everybody's thanks, and I don't have any other questions than people have already asked, and I appreciate all your time and effort. Thank you.
A few questions. I'm not done. Why aren't we reporting the rank of the top 10%? Like, would that be helpful for those kids to get in the most elite colleges?
Yeah, I don't think it would help our students.
Okay.
I don't know any high school. Is that any high schools in Long Island still rank?
So very few of the high achieving high schools in America rank, because your valedictorian could have a 104 and the 20th person in class could have a 102.8, and they're not that different of a student, but they're 10% apart on the rank. And then you're like, okay, well, if I'm to college, I'm not taking these bottom ones, even though there's only a point separating them. I'm going to focus on the top. Many, many years ago, not quite 31 years ago, but I presented a paper about rank that I could certainly resurrect and send your way if you wanted. But because it makes such fine differences between students, the data shows that it hurts.
Okay.
Andrew, can I just follow up? We do mark on the graduation program with a little star those who are in the 10%, right? So you're at least, you're in the group.
Yes.
But we don't think it would help them. But we do, yeah. Go ahead.
We do allow them to report the percentile that they're.
I got you. So this idea, and I think I know what you're going to say, this idea of having more than one valedictorian, you're not into it. Because I do think there's an argument for these, just like what you're saying, these GPAs are so close together. And is there really a significant difference between,
0.0 or the A, B, C have more valedictorians because a 95 to a 99 is an A, right? So I got A's in everything, and so did my 15 peers, and there's no way some of the schools don't differentiate at all, so you do have 15 valedictorians. I don't have a stance on that either. That's something that you all could decide if you want. There may be some merit in saying there's not that much difference between these 10 kids. There are our top cohort or our top whatever, whether you call it valedictorian or not, I don't know. But it's worth discussion, I think.
So does that hurt us when a college is looking at us compared to a Jericho where they have 17? Does that hurt our chances?
I don't think so, because valedictorian also isn't something that they're trying to, it's a nice thing, but they're going to look holistically at the transcript. They're going to look at the test scores. They're going to look at the extracurriculars. Like some years our number 5 in the class gets into more schools than the number 1 if they apply to the same schools. So it's not to say that that's specifically what they're looking for. You also have to consider what Lori Wax said, and they're recalculating the GPA. So our North Shore GPA is different than what Harvard's recalculating the GPA at. So whether they're 1 here, they may not be 1 at Harvard,
Like piggyback on what Dave said about, do these schools really know what a North Shore education is? We don't have, I'm guessing, like a multimedia video on our website showcasing what we do. Like, there is a movement now in corporate America away from a written CV. Like people are submitting like videos of themselves. And I wonder if there's a way for us to get out in front on this. Dr. Z seems like he's already.
Before, I was wondering, and I'm thinking of Connor Darivor, who's here earlier, could do it for us. So I'm asking you guys a question. Do colleges link on the high school profile? Do they ever link multimedia? Do they ever have that? Or, because I know there are like email links to, to the counselors and to you, but yeah. But at the very least, putting it on the website.
Yeah, or just linking it on the college profile if there's no way to do it, right? Because there's something stodgy about the profile, right? Like it's not jazzy. And like, so if it's all about how do we distinguish ourselves, our students really do distinguish this
Private
place.
schools are doing that too. I mean, you probably know better than me, but I'm sure Friends in Portledge, they have that there. And so.
Andrea, this is my last time, I promise, but even the act of doing it would speak about who we are.
I'd like to address the question that came up about the profile and how do we distinguish ourselves. And I think basically what's our ethos and how do we message that to schools. And the thought I had is our school itself as an entity is a metaphor for the applicant, right? So like, the school itself is the corpus in some ways, and it's emblematic of the applicant. So the strength of the school and what it stands for and what it offers. So the reason that I have found being here so compelling and the reason I have come here was the whole idea of discovering your dreams, following your journey, that our students are thinkers, problem solvers, that our kicker on the football team runs off the field and comes to pick up an instrument to perform. That's a very common thing, by the way, right? Mm-hmm. That our student is on stage on a Broadway level show and then competing on the math. But I think there's something that you're saying, President McCary, that I think is capturing that ethos, because I think that you heard some schools are becoming quite reductive with the majors. But I do think that though many, many schools are still and will continue to value the thinker, the discoverer of dreams, because they want that student, especially in the very top schools. So how do we make sure that that message of who we are? There's a ton of schools that focus on high SAT scores. I was a deputy sup under Bloomberg, and I had all the specialized schools. They all do that, right? But one of the things that stands out here for me is that there's such personalization, and then a point of gratitude to the board and to the superintendent and the central team is you allow the emblematic corpus of the school to offer things like robotics. We are going to increase our business program. We just had a science research. We have amazing arts. I mean, that's just an understatement when I say that. But making sure we create that message, that we keep packaging. We do that. I just want to be clear, because I think that's what those visits that the counselor spoke about, those personal relationships with colleges are exactly that type of messaging. But just continuing to say a ton of schools focus on test prep, a ton of schools focus on classrooms where kids are just thinking about college. But in our school at North Shore and in our district, kids are focusing on being thinkers and collaborators, and they are doing things like running from the lacrosse field to pick up the viola. Like, that's true. So how do we continue to message that? Because I think that that's exactly the type of student that schools want. And to that end, something that I know at the last admin meeting, Dr. Z posed to the entire admin team is the profile of our graduate. We had the same conversation with the building level high school shared decision team about, and not because we want to create a profile of a graduate, but the process of having that conversation gets to that ethos of who we are. But again, the point of gratitude is this board, this district fights tooth and nail to keep that in existence, right? We have those programs because we value those things that make our kids whole. So that, I think, is just really important, because the question was also, what do we keep doing? We keep making sure that we are one complete corpus so that our kids can be the same when they graduate. I do want to say one more thing, that I had a conversation today with a student and yesterday with a parent. And the two conversations, one child is going to the service. He's going to be a Marine Corps member next year. And I told that young man, I'm going to take as much pride in that square on the wall as much as I do of any other college on that square. And I had another conversation today with a student who says, I said, what are you doing this summer? I'm going to be an electrician, so I'm going to work because I'm already tracked to work with the union, and I may end up going to college. And I think that's a pathway. So the fact that he was able to say, I have a pathway, was because we have a guidance team in a school that allows that student to have that choice. But the student had a very concrete path to a job-related specific sector. And that's a point of pride for me as well, and for all of us. And I just want to, again, I know you've said it all, amazing counseling team in this building, the best I've seen in almost 30 years in schools. Superb. And the board and the district, the way they support what we do for kids is what allows them to apply to these schools. Marketing video, duly noted.
I gotta say, I think I can tell we're all really, really impressed. And this, I told Dr. Z this morning, oh my God, I was reading the stuff. I'm so anxious after reading it. But after speaking to you all, it's such a different messaging than's out there in the world about, and that is a testament to our values, this community's values, and how we're really willing to honor children's like authentic self. And I think that's like the most beautiful gift that we can give them. So thank you. Yeah, thanks. I mean, you could stay all night. I don't think any of us are done, but we'll let you go home. Thank you so much. Yeah. I will now open the floor for public comments. No? I will. Oh. Go ahead. If you would like to say something, you might. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Before you all leave, I just want to make sure, particularly Ms. Aguiar, that we have a chance to acknowledge the incredible seals of biliteracy that came in our backup material. I just wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to acknowledge that before you are very welcome to leave. But I plan to bring it up in new business, and I just want to make sure that we got to tell your face.
Thank you. You guys should go home. All right, I will now close public comments. We're gonna move, guys. We're gonna move. Action 13, A through I, it's personnel. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Okay, excellent. Any questions, comments?
A couple big retirements on there.
I'm trying to catch up here.
I mean, there'll be a recognition ceremony, obviously, at the end of the year, which is almost here, probably our next meeting. Is that our next meeting? but certainly, there's some big ones here. Should we just say the names and?
Yeah, if I could say a few words. She was mentioned this evening, Christine Halloran, Chris Halloran, who's one of our senior math teachers, calculus, and runs our internship and community service programs. So she's helped so many of our students in a unique way and has served North Shore for many, many years. Marla Behar was one of the first special education teachers in the district. And when she told me, when we were talking about her retirement, when she went to, she started at North Shore Middle School, it was her and one other special ed teacher at North Shore Junior High School. And she is an amazing teacher. She is so helpful and has worked in so many different settings, but also helpful to me and Carol in providing us with feedback. Even in the special ed review that we just completed, she was such a vital part of it and was excellent and so interested in helping. And then Laura Green, and we had Connor Darivor here earlier today, and he had presented his work that was part of Laura Green's class earlier this year. And so she's provided those unique journeys, some of those unique journeys for our students. We're losing a lot of giants to retirement this year, and that's that every, there are years where that happens, where you lose a group, and so it's hard to replace people of this magnitude. So that will be the challenge for us. Thank you.
All in favor? Thank you. Action 14 and 15, disposal of inventory and acceptance of a donation from the Bridges family to North Shore Middle School. Motion?
Motion, second.
I heard a second. Okay. All questions, comments? All in favor? Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to take 16, approval of contracts, 17, A through C, which is the approval of change orders, 18, which is the award of a bid, and 19, A through B, which is the approval to participate in cooperative bidding. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Okay. Oh, wow, everyone's good. Questions, comments? Okay, excellent. We're now on to, I'm going to do it again. Action 20, approval of special education services, 21A through DD, which are our special education consultant agreements. I personally went through every single one. And action 22, which is going to be our approval of special education tuition agreement. I got that right? Motion. Okay. Heard a second. Questions, comments?
Very briefly, it's going to be so brief, it's one sentence. That introductory sentence was longer. Now I've had two introductory sentences. I want to thank you, Dr. McCary, for requesting the tightening up of some of the processes on these. And I want to thank the administration for being open to it and following up with it. It's made it all just even that much better for our students.
You specifically mean what?
Resumes, the background,
Okay.
the CVs, to understand the licensing.
All right, good. All right, thank you. I thought that's what you meant, but I wasn't sure. Anything else? All in favor? Okay, excellent. Now we're going to move on to unfinished business. Unfinished business. I just wanted to add, I saw in the backup, Carol, you provided that there was another field trip to the whale, and for our EL students, I just want to say thank you. And it's like so nice when you read the backup and you're like, oh, we talked about that, and you guys made it happen. So thank you. A new business.
I have one very brief, it's really more of a comment. I just think it belongs here rather than anywhere else. We've talked over a lot this year, or mention has come up a number of times about maintenance of our grounds, and how you're always trying to do better, and there've been, a lot of challenges there. I just had to call attention in the midst of that to the glorious dogwood tree that is blossoming on the middle school entrance. It is huge, it is gorgeous, it is in beautiful, healthy condition. And I feel like it's, it's important to recognize what we do well as, where we always want to improve. And everybody should please notice that tree. It is unbelievably beautiful at its peak right now.
Yes.
Just new business, we're going to have applicants to community committees out there soon before people disperse.
That's right. Yes, we're working on that this week and next week. So you'll definitely see that in my next backup, but we'll start getting the mailers out before then.
Perfect.
So we need to just determine, finish determining the number of seats and what we want to put on the physical mailer versus electronic sign up for some of like the Viking community committees.
Thank you.
Any other new business? Okay, I will now adjourn the meeting. Everyone is to go home. No talking. It is very late. Everyone go home, get in their cars. You have a long day tomorrow too. All right, thank you. I'd like to thank the trustees today. I mean, this was like extra good work. You started extra early. Everybody was super nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.